Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm with Josie, who is visiting and very kindly agreed to do this interview. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from?
Sure, so I'm from Northern England, York specifically, and I currently live in Wellington, New Zealand. And I met Jen because I started writing a blog about the move from the UK to Wellington.
Her blog is amazing and I will link it down below. You have to go and check it out after you watch this video. Yeah, so Josie's been really helpful sharing her information in my Moving to New Zealand Facebook group. So I asked if she would have an interview and kind of share her experience with you guys. So we'll start off with, I have my list of questions. Who is in your family, or what is your situation? Like, who moved with you?
Yeah, so I moved alone. My situation, it's basically all to do with my partner, who I met about 4 years ago in Melbourne. I did a year living in Melbourne, and we met, and then I was actually leaving to go back home and live in London, and he was staying in Melbourne, so we had to separate. And then a couple of years after that he came to the UK. We weren't together at that time, but then we decided to make a go of things, and we needed to choose somewhere to live. And then we chose to come and live in New Zealand because he's Australian, so he could move without a visa, and New Zealand was another place where I could go and get a working holiday visa, so we chose to move here together, and we've been here for just over a year now.
Whose idea was it?
I think it was kind of a joint decision. For him, he loves outdoors and being in the wild and exploring, so New Zealand's obviously a really good place for that. And I love that stuff too, but I'm really into kind of like art and culture and creative industries, so Wellington offered that for me, so it was kind of a joint idea. Yeah.
Okay. Had either of you visited New Zealand before deciding to move here?
I had never been here, even though I'd lived in Australia for a year. I'd never made the trip across to visit, and I'd always wanted to, but Lucas had been on a sort of hiking trip a few years back, but only down south in the wild, so we didn't really know what to expect. We were coming in blind, really.
Okay.
But yeah, that was exciting at the same time, but yeah, we didn't really know what we were coming to. So
yeah. So you mentioned that you came on a working holiday visa. What are the requirements of that visa? Is it like 2 years but you can only work a year out of it, or something?
Yeah,
like that?
that's right. It's, you apply initially for a year, and then you can extend it to 2 years, but you're right, you can only work for, or this is what it's like at the moment. I think it changes.
Yeah, it changes all the time.
Yeah, but at the moment you can only work for 12 months even if you have a 24-month visa, and that's something a lot of people don't realise, and I didn't realise that either until I got here and I met with a recruitment agent, and they were like, oh yeah, you can only work for 12 months of that, and I was like, oh
wait,
okay.
what?
That kind of changes my plans a bit.
So what are your plans now?
Yeah, at the moment we're happy here. Like, we really like living in Wellington, and we feel like it's opened up a lot of opportunities that we wouldn't have had in Australia or in the UK. So for the moment we're pretty happy, and because Lucas is Australian, I've been able to get a partnership visa through him, so that's what I'm on now.
So you can live and work here with no restrictions?
Yes, or well, it's a 2-year partnership work visa, so after 2 years I think I can apply for residency, or I can extend the work visa. But yeah, it allows me to have the same rights as what Lucas has as an Australian living in New Zealand.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's pretty good.
So how long have you actually been in New Zealand now?
So we've been here just over a year. We got here in July 2016.
Okay, so you haven't kind of used up the period of your working holiday visa, you just made the transition?
Yeah, I didn't use up my working holiday visa before I applied for the partnership visa because I wanted to have all the kind of allowances that the new partnership visa would allow me to have.
It looks better when you're applying for a job.
Exactly. So jobs would, or employers would see that I could be here for longer, and they would hopefully see that I was more sort of
committed.
Committed to being here, and they could rely on me for being around longer. But actually an interesting thing happened with my partnership visa is that they clearly didn't check my application too thoroughly, because I ended up having to appeal my initial visa acceptance, because they only gave me a year.
Right.
When you're actually allowed to have 2 years if you've been living with your partner for a year. So when it came back with a year, I was quite shocked.
Because that's not any better than what you were on.
No, it wouldn't have been much better. It would only allow me a few more months. So I ended up appealing it, and I just wrote to them and explained it, and then they came back and they were like, oh yes, sorry.
We haven't
looked at it properly. And I was like, okay, fine. But yeah, so it's worth knowing that sometimes you can go back on decisions that they make, because they have loads of different people checking things, and I think sometimes things get forgotten or not looked at, or yeah.
Good to know. Okay, so how long was the process from making the decision, like, okay, we're going to New Zealand, until you actually arrived in the country?
So it was 5 months.
That's really quick.
Yeah.
And you moved from, you were living in
England
at the time?
It wasn't 5 months, it was almost a year, because I just realised I decided that I was living in London in September 2015, and then in January 2016 I went to Australia to pick up Lucas.
Okay.
But I ended up being in Australia for 6 months on a holiday, basically.
Right, so it was 5 months from making the decision to leaving the country,
yeah,
but you didn't go straight to New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you bring any goods over in a container at all?
Nothing. Literally nothing. I didn't bring anything, just a suitcase.
And has it been expensive to set up from scratch?
I think because of the way that we're doing it, and we know that there's a chance we won't be staying here forever, we haven't put too much into our home. We've got second-hand furniture and just bits that we've collected, and we have a small flat for 2 of us, so it hasn't cost that much.
Right. But if you were moving here with a family, establishing yourselves forever, it could end up costing a package.
Yeah, I think it would definitely cost quite a lot if you were committing to it and you wanted to build a home properly. Then it would cost more than it would cost in the UK or in Australia. Yeah, but it's doable. Like, you can be crafty and thrifty like you.
Second-hand for the
and
win.
make it work. Yeah, so...
What was the house hunting process like? Was it difficult to find a place? What kind of home do you have?
I think Wellington, the housing market is quite busy, so it wasn't
expensive.
Yeah, and expensive for what you get. So it wasn't super easy, but we did find somewhere that we've been living for the past year. It's not the nicest place I've ever lived. Like, it's an old place and it's not particularly well heated, but it's home and we've made it nice and it's in a good location.
That always makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, so we're happy with it.
And where did you stay when you first arrived until you found a home?
Yeah, so we stayed in an Airbnb with a lady who was really lovely, and I would really recommend that actually for people moving if you need time to look for a place, because you can do long-term rentals through Airbnb, and it was really great staying with this lady because she showed us a lot of Wellington
insider information,
and told us how to get around and recommendations and introduced us to people, and yeah, that was really, really good.
And how long were you there before you moved into your flat?
We had a month.
Oh, okay, that's not long.
No, not long. But because we were only renting, we didn't think it would take too long. And had we not found somewhere, we probably would have moved into another Airbnb
Right, okay.
for another month maybe.
Yeah, that helps that you didn't have a bunch of stuff with you.
Yeah.
But that's really encouraging because the rental market is so... There's a shortage of rentals.
Yeah.
It's encouraging that you were able to find somewhere suitable that quickly.
Yeah, there definitely is places. I mean, I only know Wellington, but I would say don't try and look in February if you're going to Wellington, and it's probably the same in Auckland and any of the university towns, because that's when all the students are moving and changing, and it gets really crazy. But
I think families as well. Christmas is over, the holidays are over, okay, it's time to find a place, and that's when everyone comes out the woodwork.
I think that's true.
So is that when you moved?
No, we moved in July, so
there you go.
It was fine. Yeah.
Insider tip.
Yeah, so I would say avoid February if you can.
And how long did it take you to find a job? What was that process like?
Actually, I feel like quite lucky because it was so easy. I signed up with recruitment agencies as soon as I got to Wellington.
That helps. Yeah.
And they just sent me out for interviews, and I was doing temp roles in a few different places until I got a long-term permanent.
I did that in London. You just start working to bring in money, and then you wait for your permanent role. Yeah,
exactly. And that worked really well because I was instantly earning, and like, of course it's a little bit stressful because you really want to lock something down long term, otherwise you can't do anything. But
it's also stressful not having any money. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that worked. And the same for my boyfriend. He has a trade, and he was basically hired before we even got to New Zealand. So if you have a trade, You didn't bring anything over with you in terms of a container. Is there something you wish you had brought, or were you quite happy just to leave everything? Interesting question. The thing is, I don't actually have a lot of stuff anyway, because I've always rented, and in the UK when you rent, the furniture usually comes with the place. But I haven't really seen furnished rentals in New Zealand the way I did in England. No, it's not the same. Here you have to buy all your furniture. Back home the landlord usually provides it. But in terms of things that I would have brought, there's nothing really, although I did have to get my mum to post all my ski gear. So it's handy to bring things that cost, things like ski gear that cost a lot in the UK. And it fits you right, it's broken in, you know, it works. Yeah. And to buy that again here in New Zealand will cost an absolute fortune. So even if you think, oh, I'll just get new stuff there, it actually is a lot better to bring it along. Yeah. I don't know, I quite enjoy like buying furniture and making a house a home, so it was quite fun to start doing that from scratch. But I guess if you already own a lot of furniture and things, it might pay to ship that for us over. It did. We jam-packed filled a 20-foot container, and it cost £4,000 to bring that. It would have cost way more than £4,000 to replace it, so for us it was a no-brainer. Exactly, because you already had all this stuff that was worth a lot, so to replace it would cost and there's no IKEA here. Yeah, there's no IKEA. Sad face. So what family have you left behind? So I've left everyone behind. I don't have any family in New Zealand, or even close to New Zealand. That's really hard. Not that anywhere is close to New Zealand. Where's close to New Zealand? Australia's probably the closest. Yeah. Well, Lucas's family are all in Australia, and I'm quite close to them now, so that is nice. But yeah, all my family are back in the UK, and it's definitely the hardest part about being here. And there's no way of getting around that. There's no like, here's some tips for handling being away from your family. It's just hard. It's just hard, and as hard as it is for me, I think it's hard for especially my mum, and I definitely think about that every day. And yeah, it just I think it's harder. I think it's harder for those left behind because you have new experiences and you're making new life, and that's somewhat distracting. Yeah. But for the people you've left, they've just got a U-shaped hole left in their lives. Exactly. It isn't. It's not easy. But I did go home at Christmas and saw them all. So I still feel like it is possible to be part of those times that are really important. And they're all coming to visit me in November, which is going to be...
I bet you can't wait.
Really cool, yeah, I can't wait for that.
Do you ever talk to them? Because obviously we're on the opposite ends of the clock, which can make it difficult.
Yeah, I've got a really good way around that now. I use the WhatsApp app, and because I walk to work every morning, which takes me half an hour, I use that time to call one of them, either my brother or my dad or my mum, and just catch up. Like, not every day, but it's a really good way of tying it into my day, because sometimes on an evening you're just doing your thing and then it'll be morning for them, and it's just kind of like a really not great time, but their evening and my walk to work seems to work out really well, so it's a nice time to catch up
and to remember to do it, because I get so busy, or like you say, you think, oh, I'll Skype with him this evening, and then by the time you've finished up doing what you're doing, you think, I need to Skype now. Actually, it's pretty late, and you know that I'm going to be on Skype for this long, and it's going to be a late night, or in the morning you think, I'll Skype with him in the morning, you start your day, and then it's too late for them. So that's good that reminds you to do it, because I can go like months and then think, I really keep meaning to, and I haven't in this long. So exactly. It is a good way of thinking, oh, I've got this time, I should do that now. Because sometimes also the fact that you know you're going to be on the phone for so long puts you off, because you're like, I really have to commit to this big chat now, whereas on my walk to work I can be like, oh, I can speak to them for 10 minutes and I can do the same again tomorrow, and it's more casual and normal. I find that it's either a big call with all the highlights and a catch up, but you're kind of not in the day-to-day stuff. It's the frequent calls that really make a difference. And having a natural deadline and just little calls makes it manageable.
I think so too.
I need to learn from you. Apologies to my family. I'm really bad at that. So how has the homesickness been for you?
It was actually a lot harder at the start. When I first got here, the first few months were really hard. I think just settling in and not knowing anyone, and not having a job and a house, and just starting from scratch, which I did really enjoy, but at the same time just having nothing to kind of fall back on was a bit daunting. I don't know if that was what it was like.
Because you're going through something stressful, and you want to touch base, dock with the mothership, and you can't. And it's the people close to you that you want during a time like that, and you're so far from them. So that was it. But it has died away with time, for sure. Although sometimes I'll have a little 5 minutes of being like, oh god, if I was at home it'd be so much easier, and then that drifts away and everything's fine. And a majority of the time I don't miss home, but that's good.
I think no matter where you are, you get little bouts of like, if I was doing something different it would be better, but the fact is we just all have to try and bloom where we're planted. And
exactly, especially when you've chosen to be planted.
Exactly.
So what are some differences between New Zealand and, you said you come from York, what's different and what's similar?
Well, I'll compare Wellington because that's the place that I live and know. So if I compare Wellington and York, I'd say they're actually quite similar in size, but in general New Zealand is so much quieter, and there's so fewer people, which is really nice. And because I was actually living in London before I moved out here, the contrast is just stark. Like they're both capital cities, Wellington and London, but Wellington is just so small, you can walk everywhere. It's got everything that you want. It's got, you know, art, culture, theatre, cafes, bars in like huge numbers and really good quality, but it's just so small and manageable.
There's more of a kind of community feel, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's more like a giant village. And I know London has a lot of different villages, but it's not got that same kind of community all in it together type feeling. I think what's so great about New Zealand is that no matter where you are, you can get out into some amazing a like outstanding wilderness in like 10 minutes, even if you're at the center of a city, and you can instantly feel like you've like discovered somewhere new, and you're just more in touch with like nature and the way things are. Whereas sometimes like in London and in the UK you get so wrapped up in like the day-to-day, and you can't really have that kind of perspective that you get here, which I think is really nice. In terms of lifestyle, I think I've found that people in New Zealand are more relaxed. So for example, in the work environment, people are more in charge of their own time, and sort of when they come and go. And I think in London people are just really, you know, working to the grind, and there's a lot expected of you, which is not the same here. There's more of a work-life balance, a good work-life balance.
Getting a bit deep. What were your hopes and expectations before you moved here, and have they been met?
Yeah, I wanted to get a really creative job in the artistic industries. That hasn't happened because I think there's not as many opportunities in that kind of area. But what I've found is that there are a lot of opportunities in lots of things that I wouldn't have expected. Like in Wellington, working for the government is something a lot of people do, and that's been really interesting and eye-opening for me. I also thought I'd be living like by the sea in a shack and like working on like an orchard or something.
Yeah.
That isn't happening.
Hashtag real life.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's good. Like I'm saving money and I'm enjoying it, and I'm not stressed, and it does have elements of that kind of picturesque life that I wanted, but obviously I still have to work 9 to 5 and still have to do the washing up. And
But it's not been a disappointment.
Yeah, but it's definitely not been a disappointment. It's been everything I wanted, but in a different way to what I expected.
The most important things of what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
What is something you've struggled with since arriving?
Not knowing many people.
Okay, so making friends?
Yeah, making friends has been harder than I thought. I think because I'm in a couple, I think it's harder to meet people when you're a couple because...
And people that you both get on with.
Yeah. So that's been a slow process. Also because we don't have like a common ground, like a university course or children or something like that.
You need to get a dog.
Yeah.
Meet people at the dog park.
I know. Probably should.
Probably not the best reason to get a dog.
No. Lucas wants to get a dog actually, but we're not permanent, so
yeah,
I'd feel bad if we had to leave it behind.
Yeah. What is something that surprised you? Good or bad?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things. Like I wasn't expecting it to be so expensive. I don't know, I thought it would be similar to Australia, like things like not having an Aldi or an IKEA or things like that.
Yeah.
Like quite materialistic expectations, but
yeah, because you can be in another country or area that's expensive, but there are those cheaper options that you could get, but there's nothing here.
Yeah, there's none of that.
Sad face.
Yeah.
Something that you have particularly enjoyed, that you're like, this is New Zealand, this is what I love, this is great.
So definitely the outdoors. Like if you like hiking, fishing, surfing, anything that, skiing, anything that's outdoors, this is like the place to be, because you can do all of it in like 2 hours from your house at the most. So that has been really good. It'd be hard to give that up, I think, if I moved somewhere else. Just it's got everything. It's just beautiful. Like
anywhere you drive, you're like, is this real life?
Yeah. It's just like the photos. It's just amazing, spectacular.
And then lastly, pearls of wisdom. What is something that you wish you had known? If you could go back in time and tell yourself this one thing before you embarked on this whole move to New Zealand, what do you wish you'd known? I think you actually mentioned it in a blog post.
Did I?
Yes, you said something about I wish I'd known it was going to actually be this easy.
Yeah, that's a good one actually, because I think I struggle a little bit with the questions that are like, what was hard, or what are you surprised by, because it has actually been really easy for me, which I feel very lucky about. The visa process and settling in and the job and everything just worked out. So I suppose, yeah, I'd say to myself back then, just don't stress, just enjoy it, try and enjoy the bits where you're not working, try and enjoy the journey there, and it'll all work out in the end.
But it's easy to say that with hindsight.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm the same though. I look back and we had 2 years of applying for the job and applying for residency. It was a long time, and the whole time until we got our visas, we didn't know if we were going to be coming or not. And I wish I could go back and be like, just calm down, it'll work out, you'll get there. But we wanted it so badly that there was so much at stake.
Yeah.
So
you'd say to yourself, don't worry. But it's impossible not to when you're in this situation, isn't it?
So that, I guess there's not really a piece of advice for anyone watching. Like, just chill, you'll get there in the end, because I guess some people don't.
Yeah, yeah. But fingers crossed.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
Thank
She
you.
has an amazing blog. It's called Lost in Silver Fern, and I will link it down below. Please go and check it out. There's heaps of really valuable information there and beautiful photographs, and it's worth a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.